What up, guys? Your boy Quake, and before we get into this video, I advise you, if you haven't, watch part 1 of this video, which is Pusha T versus Lil Wayne. Click the video in the middle of the screen right now to watch that, because if you don't, you're not really going to understand what's going on in part 2, because the real true origins of this beef starts in that with Pusha T and Lil Wayne. That's all I have to say. Leave a like on this video. I'd really appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at QuakeGW, and let's get into it.
I have no desire to ever mend anything with that person. And yeah, that situation just went where it went, and it's just there's no turning back. It's not like those other situations.
You're questioning my street credibility. We know you got ghostwriters, we got reference tracks, we heard all of that. So now I'm gonna question your authenticity as well.
When it comes to me, he's not gonna have any like morals or respect. There's just some unwritten rules in the sport for some people, obviously not for him, and that's fine, you know?
Okay, why would you put her in it, my fiance?
Yes, sir.
The line was trash, right? It was a line about like, I'm gonna make it ring on you, like Virginia Williams. The line itself is trash. What is the real issue with you in marriage? What are y'all like? What's your family like? Oh, your dad left you at 5. Oh, I get that. He never walked you to the bus stop. You're mad about this. Your mom, she never remarried. Ah, you don't even know what like family is. So of course you don't dig marriage. Oh, I get it. Okay, boom.
The battle between Pusha T and Lil Wayne reached its peak in 2012, but a year before that, Drake took it upon himself to go at Pusha T. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, because if you're on someone's team, on their label, it only makes sense. And Drake at that time was really hungry, and Drake shows a lot of loyalty to Lil Wayne because he's the one that put him on. So it only made sense for Drake to jump into this. And of course, Pusha T had no problems with Drake jumping into it. He was willing to take on the whole Cash Money if he had to, because he was already going against Wayne and Birdman. So if you've seen the previous episodes, I break this down into 4 parts. The first being how it started, the second part being the major points in the battle. Then I go on to my opinion and talk about who won the battle portion of the beef, which is in the midst of the battle, who was winning, and then who won the war portion, which is a long term after the battle was done, who is still thriving, who is still surviving. So with that being said, grab a drink, grab some popcorn, sit back, relax, and let's get into it. If you were to ask Drake how his problems with Pusha T started, he would say that it was because of Kanye West. He said this in his Rap Radar interview. He felt like since Kanye West didn't like him and that they had a little bit of issues, that Pusha T also then decided not to like Drake.
I think that's where all of this kind of stems from. It's all kind of rooted in that situation, yes. You know, I think that he definitely recruited a guy with a similar dislike for me, no matter what he says in interviews, you know. Mm-hmm. I know that he can tell whoever, you know, I got love for him and whatever, but it's not love, you know. It's there's something there that bothers him deeply, and yeah, I can't fix it for him. So it just is what it is.
But according to Pusha T, he never had any issues with Drake. It wasn't until Drake released a track called 2 Birds, 1 Stone, where Pusha T felt like he was sending subliminal shots at him.
But 2 birds and 1 stone, I tried to actually go and look for that, and I don't really see where he's going actually.
It was about the something about, you know, you was watching Scarface, you weren't really doing this, or I don't even remember the bars like that, but it was something of that nature. Okay. A couple jabs in that.
Okay.
And you know, it was what it was.
Okay.
However, based on my research, both of these guys got this wrong on how it started. And I did a lot of research. They were sending subliminal shots at each other back and forth. I feel like it originally started because Drake wanted to jump in and defend his boss, his mentor, Lil Wayne, and that's how it got started, and here's the proof. When Lil Wayne was released from jail after serving almost a year in November of 2010, and a couple months later, Pusha T released a track called Open Your Eyes, where at the end he says, "Congratulations, Weezy, you're finally home." And then Complex interviewed him in March of 2011 about this line and what exactly he meant. And he said basically the battle between him and Lil Wayne was over. I went into detail about this on the first part, so check that out if you want to know exactly what Pusha T said. But basically, he said it's over because Lil Wayne wasn't really sparring back with him, and it was just Pusha T sending shots, and Pusha T felt like, you know what, it's done. He just came back from home. There's nothing more to talk about. And I feel like Pusha T would have kept his word on not going at Lil Wayne anymore until Drake decided to go at him subliminally. He ended up dropping a new track on May 20th, 2011, just 2 months after Pusha T said the battle with him and Wayne is over. The track was called Dreams Money Can Buy, and this track was used to promote his upcoming sophomore album, Take Care, which was set to drop later that year. And in this track, he clearly stands up for Wayne and Birdman.
And I feel like lately it went from top 5 to remaining 5. My favorite rappers either lost it or they ain't alive.
And the only person at that time to go at Wayne and Birdman was obviously Pusha T. On top of that, Drake mentioned that he used to like this person and now the person's career has faded. If you guys don't know, Drake actually used to be a huge Clips fan and Pharrell fan. He actually even bought a mic that used to be signed by Pusha T from eBay. That's how much of a fan he was of the Clips. So these subliminal bars were clearly aimed at Pusha T.
One day I was looking for like autograph stuff from Clips because I was like a really, really big Clips fan. Some search words led me to this guy in Virginia that supposedly had a microphone that Pusha T used during the show. It was like plastic, but it had his autograph on it.
I just thought he was crazy for spending $200 for a Pusha T microphone, was supposedly signed by Pusha T.
Of course, Pusha T caught wind of this track, and a couple months later, on September 26th, 2011, Pusha T jumps on the same exact beat that Drake had on Dreams Money Can Buy and sends subliminal shots right back at Drake.
Rappers on they sophomores acting like they boss lords. Fame such a funny thing for sure. When niggas start believing all them encores, I'm just the one that sends you off, bonjour.
Then just a month later, on October 14th, 2011, Drake is on a promo run for his sophomore album, Take Care. He stops by Funk Flex's show on Hot 97. Funk Flex then asks him, have you heard Pusha T's freestyle over one of your beats? Drake says he has, but he feels like it wasn't a subliminal shot at him. But in the interview, if you guys catch it, he actually sends a subliminal shot right back at Pusha T in that interview. He says it's a frustrating time for other rappers, so he gets it.
I think it was a freestyle, and it was over one of your instrumentals, and he was referring to like sophomores and rappers. Did you take any offense to that freestyle?
Not really. I mean, I listened to it and I just couldn't pick it out. I couldn't pick out where I was supposed to be offended. So yeah, I've never really had an issue with him, but you know, I mean, it's a frustrating time for a lot of people right now. I get it. So, you know, if it was directed at me, just make it a little more direct next time.
After that, quite some time went on before anyone said anything. And then on May 24th, 2012, Pusha T drops the bomb diss track Exodus 23-1, taking aim at Drake, Lil Wayne, and Birdman.
Contract all fucked up. I guess that means you all fucked up. You signed to one nigga that signed to another nigga that signed to 3 niggas. Now that's bad luck.
Once again, some time passes on before Drake says anything, and on September 24th, 2013, Drake drops his third album, Nothing Was the Same. And on the intro track, Tuscan Leather, he sends more subliminal shots at Pusha T, talking about he's a bench player and not a starter.
Just as famous as my mentor, but that's still the boss, don't get sent for. Get hype on tracks and jump in front of a bullet you wasn't meant for.
Pusha T was gearing up to drop his own album, so of course, new music came out, and some of the tracks were subliminally dissing Drake. Just a couple weeks later, after Tuscan Leather came out, on October 8th, 2013, Pusha T dropped a track called Suicide, where he's sending more subliminal shots.
Young niggas clicking up with my rivals like the Bible. Don't burn like these bullets, don't spiral.
Then the following month, in December, he dropped his second single called MFTR, and on this track, he's subliminally dissing Drake for dancing in his songs, such as Hotline Bling.
While every song got a rapper dance, yeah. I'm drug money like Dapper Dan.
Then just the next week later, Pusha T drops his third single off his upcoming album called Crutches, Crosses, Caskets. And on this track, it's very clear he's sending shots at Drake because he mentions an incident where there were rumors that Diddy slapped Drake.
Old nigga slapping young niggas. How? Imagine that. Where you from, nigga?
For those that don't know, there were reports at the end of 2014 that Diddy got into a dispute with Drake in a Miami nightclub, and they were arguing about the song 0 to 100, which was basically making a huge noise back then and was even Grammy nominated. Apparently, Drake stole that track from Diddy, and Diddy ended up slapping Drake. But Diddy later on denied everything and said he has much respect for Drake and did not do that.
I did not put hands on Drake.
Oh.
And I do not want any problems with Drake. Drake is, right now, that's all I got. That's all I have to say. He's putting in his work. I didn't do nothing to Drake. Drake is my friend. 0 to 100 was initially a record that, was my record. And then, somehow that became, just a misunderstanding because we was working with the same producers.
That's just the, man, we've heard all of these, all of these scenarios going on in rap this year. I just, I don't be there for the situation, but I don't even understand the notion of it. Like, man.
Puff helped to produce this track.
Right.
And we've seen stories of Puff and a Drake altercation.
Oh, yeah.
And a slap, reportedly.
Is
this allusions to that, or?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I never talked to Puff about that.
Okay.
From this, about a year went on before anyone said anything, and then Pusha T dropped another track where he's subliminally dissing Drake. On October 12th, 2016, he dropped a new track called HGTV.
These niggas call it duty cause they killings ain't real. With a questionable pin so the feeling ain't real.
Then just a couple weeks later, Drake drops a new track called Two Birds, One Stone on October 24th, 2016. And on this track, it was very clear that Drake was sending shots at Pusha T, and he even decided to send some shots at Kid Cudi. I understand why Pusha T says this was the moment he felt like the beef started with Drake, because it was clear as day in his bars that he was going at Pusha T. Before then, we were kind of guessing back and forth, but now it was officially even the public knew. Pusha T ended up making the cover of Complex magazine for the December 2016 issue, and in this issue, Complex asked him, does he feel like the Two Birds, One Stone track was subliminal shots aimed at him? This is what he had to say. He said, I heard something. I would never ever attribute that song to myself. My past is cemented. My past happened. Like slavery happened, like the Holocaust happened. You can't ever question anything that has actually happened. And then he adds, listen, I'm not speaking to him at all. I'm telling you, the real of it is, it ain't real if it's about me.
But really it's you with all the drug dealer stories. It's gotta stop though. You made a couple chops and now you think you Chapo.
Fast forward, and in 2017, Drake was focused on his compilation album, More Life, which was heavily influenced by the UK sound. So he would travel there quite frequently. And while there, he ended up spending the night in January of 2017 with a woman named Sophie. Now, at the time, nobody really cared, but little did we know this would become a huge factor in this whole Drake versus Pusha T battle. Then a couple months later, in May of 2017, Sophie went public with claims that she was carrying Drake's child. And to prove that it was Drake's child, she showed text messages that Drake sent her wanting her to not have the child. Then Drake's lawyers responded to those claims saying, this woman has a very questionable background. She has admitted to having multiple relationships. She's one of many women claiming he got them pregnant. If it is in fact Drake's child, which he does not believe, he would do the right thing by the child. Now, in Drake's defense, he's had a lot of accusations like this, and being as big as Drake is, I don't blame him for having this approach. And around this time, nobody really cared about this news because, like I said, there were a lot of women accusing Drake of having their child. So nobody really paid much attention to this. It wasn't making headlines. Then in October of 2017, Sophie gave birth to a child named Adonis. Fast forward to next year, and in March of 2018, Kanye West reaches out to Drake to help him out with his album. And according to Drake, that's when he revealed everything about his personal life to Kanye West, because Kanye West said, if we're going to make music together, you have to be very open to me. And that's when he revealed that he had a son with this girl, and then revealed that he was planning on doing a bunch of things with his music, the time release dates and stuff like that.
I ended up linking with Ye, and he, you know, sold me on this whole speech of like, you know, I'm in a great place, I'm making money, and I'm a father, and I want to, you know, be Quincy Jones and help you. But in order to do that, you've got to be transparent with me, and you've got to play me your music, and you've got to tell me when you're dropping, and I know you don't like to do things like that. And so, you know, I was in the studio. I guess, you know, we all kind of felt a genuine vibe from it. So I played him my music, and I told him when I was dropping.
How much of Scorpion did you have done by then?
Maybe like 60% or something.
Got it.
And then from there, it was all good. By the way, I'm in Wyoming. I play him March 14th. I send him a picture of my son.
Oh, my God.
I tell him I'm having trouble with my son's mother. We had a conversation. I shared my... So...
Following this, on May 25th, 2018, Pusha T drops his new studio album, Daytona. And there's 2 tracks going at Drake. The first one was What Would Meek Do? The second track was Infrared, and this track, according to Pusha T, was a response to Drake's Two Birds, One Stone. And in the track Infrared, Pusha T is questioning Drake's writing ability.
It was written like Nas, but it came from Quentin. How could you ever right these wrongs when you don't even write your songs?
Drake then wastes no time and decides to drop a response track called Duppy Freestyle. And in this track, Drake is questioning Pusha T's own history and if he even sold drugs like he says in all of his songs. He also decides to send shots at Kanye West.
I had a microphone of yours, but then the signature faded. I think that pretty much resembles what's been happening lately.
At the end of the Duppy track, Drake mentions that he's going to send an invoice over to Kanye West for helping him sell records on his album. Pusha T, of course, heard the diss track and immediately went to Twitter and said, send the invoice for the extra 20. Then Drake immediately went to Instagram and actually sent that invoice, but instead of 20,000, he sent it for 100,000, and for the services rendered, he wrote promotional assistance and career reviving, and in the caption he said, you're welcome. Then a couple days went by, and Pusha T decided to respond to Drake's Duppy freestyle with a track called The Story of Adidon, in which he raps over Jay-Z's The Story of OJ. And immediately off the bat, the artwork alone caused a lot of controversy. Because on the artwork, Drake is seen wearing blackface. And for those that don't know what blackface is, basically, roughly 200 years ago, performers, white performers specifically, would paint their faces black to mock slaves. So obviously this was a racial thing. And when the artwork initially came out, people thought it was photoshopped, but Pusha T immediately addressed that on Twitter saying, please stop referring to this photo as artwork. I'm not an internet baby. I don't edit images. This is a real picture. These are his truths. See for yourself. And then he adds a link of the photographer's website who took these photos, but I'm not going to show it here because that person doesn't want to be attached to this situation. Drake then had to address this photo on his Instagram, and he said this, I know everyone is enjoying the circus, but I want to clarify this image in question. This was not from a clothing brand shoot or my music career. This is a picture from 2007, a time in my life where I was an actor and I was working on a project that was about young black actors struggling to get roles, being stereotyped and typecast. The photos represented how African Americans were once wrongfully portrayed in entertainment. Me and my best friend at the time, Mazin Azagedin, who is also an actor from Sudan, were attempting to use our voice to bring awareness to the issues we dealt with all the time as black actors at auditions. This was to highlight and raise our frustrations with not always getting a fair chance in the industry and to make a point that the struggle for black actors had not changed much. And what Drake is referring to here can actually be tracked down on YouTube. There's a video called Us and Them official video on YouTube by Bam Films. And in this video, Drake and his friend Mazin that he mentioned in his Instagram story go to audition for a role that's meant for a black actor. A white person auditions for it and does an amazing job. Drake auditions for it and does a horrible job. And then Mazin auditions for it and he fits the role perfectly, But ultimately, Drake ends up getting the role because they can't audition the white guy because he doesn't fit the black person role, and they don't want to audition the black guy, so they choose in the middle with Drake, even though his audition was horrible. So apparently, that photo of Drake in blackface was supposed to be used as a promo for this video. Now, I would have played this video for you guys to watch here, but I can't due to copyright, so go ahead and check it out on their channel if you want to get a better understanding of what I'm talking about. Of course, the artwork wasn't the only controversial thing. Once the track dropped, Pusha T dropped a lot of bombs aiming at Drake, his parents, the child that he's supposedly hiding, and his producer 40.
A baby's involved, it's deeper than rap. We talking character, let me keep with the facts. You are hiding a child, let that boy come home. Deadbeat motherfucker playing border patrol. Ooh!
After this track was released, a lot of people felt like Pusha T took it too far. However, Pusha T was doing a promo run for his album, so he was stopping by radio stations and revealed why he went so personal on this track. And he said it was because Drake on his Duppy freestyle mentioned his wife.
Why would you mention my fiance?
Wow.
Like, no women, no children. What's up? Like, what we doing? You know what I'm saying? But, I looked at it, I was just like, it made me sort of dive in to like, oh, wait a minute, who am I like really, really dealing with here? Like I say, I get up here, first thing you ask me about is the back and forth. So I'm like, yeah, man, it's competitive, blah, 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 cool. You mentioned my fiance, you put a name in a song, like, bro, she don't even listen to rap. Like, what are you talking about right now? What are we doing?
So that was the line for you said, okay, now there are no lines.
Of course, there were absolutely positively no more lines because of that line.
A major question that popped up was, how did Pusha T get his information? And according to Drake, he feels like Kanye West was the one that gave him the information. But according to Pusha T, he says that's not how it happened at all. He appeared on Joe Budden's podcast and said that it was Drake's producer 40 that slept with a woman that Pusha T knew. And apparently 40 revealed all this information to this woman, and this woman in turn revealed that information to Pusha T.
Ye told Push about my son and my situation. I was in Wyoming, blase, blase, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's wrong. Didn't happen like that. Never happened. The information came from 40. It didn't come from Kanye. At all.
Okay.
40 is sleeping with a woman. With that also came the fact that Drake has a child. With that also came the trip that everybody took to go see the child and bring them gifts and all of this information. She divulged this information.
She has a great personality.
That's where it came from.
Then people were wondering, how did Pusha T know that Drake was going to reveal his son with Adidas? Well, it's pretty easy. If you connect the dots, Pusha T and Kanye West both have deals over at Adidas. So when Drake went over there, I'm sure somebody that was working with Drake on revealing his kid with Adidas probably leaked the information to Pusha T or Kanye West, seeing as Kanye West is literally the biggest thing over at Adidas with Yeezus. However, Drake in his Rap Radar interview denied that he was going to reveal his son with Adidas.
At the time, I was working with Adidas, and we were toying with the idea of a name being a play off of a name, off of my son's name. I wasn't revealing my son with Adidas, or like I wasn't gonna have my son like in the fucking. Right.
After this track dropped, all eyes were on Drake and what he was going to do next. And the first thing that was said after the story of Adidon was released was Pusha T releasing a tweet saying, "You got 100,000 floating around for info. Can't no amount of money create skeletons that don't exist. Hashtag I'm upset." And what the hashtag is for, it was Drake released a track right after this track was released called I'm Upset. And a lot of people assumed that was the diss track, but of course it ended up not being that way.
I tweeted out, 100 grand ain't enough to
information.
Yeah, for information.
You're looking for
that
something.
Shit was real. This shit is so real that people who were close and near and dear to me are aiding and helping him do this shit. And I'm like,
damn,
that shit is fucking, it's so whack to me, man. It's this woman, man. And she's worked on every project I've ever had. Every project I've ever had. She worked on my Adidas campaigns, everything. just to give you the story of how this shit went, I'm on my way to fucking Wyoming. We're on our way to Wyoming listening to Ye album. We in the car, get a call from a old friend from LA. Yo, somebody just hit me up talking about $100,000, you know, for information on you, so on and so forth. You know, and the wild part about it is, you know, it's this woman, this girl up there, her name is Cap. You know Cap, don't you? Like, don't y'all rock with each other like that? And I'm like, nah, whatever. Hung up the phone, knew damn well it was the truth, because shouldn't nobody know this man. Ever.
Well,
like, in conjunction with me in 2018. 2001 and 2, yes.
Got it.
Not now.
And based off of history, Drake responds pretty quickly to diss tracks. But in this case, it took roughly a week before we heard anything on Drake's side. And it wasn't Drake that said anything, it was his mentor, Jay Prince. Jay Prince's son was the one who discovered Drake and brought him to Lil Wayne. So Jay Prince, the owner of Rap A Lot Records, has close ties to Drake. And apparently, according to Jay Prince, he decided to tell Drake to not release his response track to Pusha T and Kanye West. And the reason why he says he stopped it was because this track supposedly was supposed to be a career-ending track for mainly Kanye West, and this track was mainly aimed towards Kanye West about personal things in his life and not towards Pusha T.
So he did have a response ready though, huh, Jay?
Oh, no doubt about it.
You heard it?
But let me say this here: the ingredients, the ingredients was overwhelming. You know what I mean? I know for a fact that it would have been bad for Kanye and my man. You know what I mean?
Had that song got out.
Yeah, it just wouldn't be good. You know, it's beyond music at that point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's gonna affect the livelihood. It's gonna interfere with his whole lifestyle. You know what I mean? From that day forward.
Drake briefly spoke about this track as well in his Rap Radar interview. He confirmed it was a real track and that he decided ultimately to not release it because years down the line, he would have felt not proud of himself and looked at himself in a different way. So ultimately, that diss track never came out.
When I was making the record in response, which was a real record, I know people think it's like some myth, it was like on this Vinyls beat, and I just found myself saying things that, like, one seemed really out of character just because I was like deeply invested in the situation and getting very angry, and saying things that I don't know if in 2 years I'd want to hear myself say.
A couple weeks later, and Drake drops his 5th studio album, Scorpion, on June 29th, 2018. And on some of these tracks, he addresses what exactly happened with him not showing his child to the world.
Look at the way we live. I wasn't hiding my kid from the world. I was hiding the world from my kid.
And in his Rap Radar interview, he said he didn't know for sure if it was his kid or not. And he found out basically weeks before his new album came out.
I actually did a DNA test for my son, and they came back to us and they said that the DNA test got ruined in transit, and that they couldn't be 100% sure that that was my son or not. So I was in a really weird pending situation where I didn't want to go tell the world that that was my son, and it wasn't. But you know, it actually wasn't till a week before the album came out that I got confirmation that that was definitely my son. It took me 2 more solid tests with 2 different companies.
Pusha T ended up responding to the interview on Twitter, just basically laughing at it. And a couple weeks down the line, Pusha T tweeted something that was looked at as shots at Drake. He said, "You tried, you failed. I'm hearing you want to try again. This time, I'm not going to play with you, any of you." Apparently, Pusha T was hearing that Drake was sending more subliminal shots at him and then wanting to release more music going at him. After this, things would seemingly go back to how they started, which was more subliminal shots at each other. Drake would send some here and there, and Pusha T would do the exact same thing. For example, when Drake and Future released their track Life Is Good, Drake talks about the time where Kanye West pushed up his release dates to the same date as him. Then on February 21st, 2020, Jadakiss dropped a new track called Hunting Season featuring Pusha T, and it's clear Pusha T is sending more subliminal shots. Then in July of 2020, Pop Smoke's team was gearing up for him to drop the deluxe version of his album, Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon. And on the deluxe version, there was a track called Paranoia featuring Pusha T, Gunna, and Young Thug. And according to People, Pusha T's verse was sending shots at Drake. And that connection makes sense because in the verse, he references two things which has direct connection to Drake. The first thing he mentions was when he was attacked while performing in Toronto in November of 2018. He ended up performing there and some fans threw water and tried to attack him on stage. So he mentions that in his verse when he says, "Let him rush the stage when you made like Sinatra." Later on in the verse, he also mentions about wanting to get a home in Mississauga, which is a city in the greater Toronto area. And this is a city where even Party Next Door, who is Drake's artist, lives in. So it's clear that this verse was going at Drake.
You know reality bites, it's chestnut checkers. Those empty threats only sound good on your records. Let them rush the stage when you made like Sinatra. I might even buy a home out in Mississauga.
Then the verse ended up getting removed from the album due to the backlash of Pusha T dissing Drake on Pop Smoke's album, and Pop Smoke obviously passed away, so people looked at it as a disrespectful thing to do on his album. And even Young Thug looked at it that way, and he had a couple things to say to Pusha T about doing that verse. And Pusha T addressed that verse saying this to Young Thug on Instagram. "Hey, Young Thug, couple things. Don't feel bad. Nobody knew what the verse was about. The label heads that stopped it didn't even know. They only assumed because he told them," meaning Drake, the same way he told about Rick Ross, the Maybach 6 verse, which I mentioned in part 1 of this documentary. He continues and says, "If he'll tell record execs about verses, God only knows what else he'll tell. I don't deal in police work, police rappers, or police guys." And ultimately, Pusha T's verse was removed off the track because if you check the Pop Smoke Deluxe album, he isn't on there. Then a couple weeks later, Drake drops a new freestyle called Only You. And people speculate it's subliminal shots at Kanye West and Pusha T because just days prior, Kanye West went on a Twitter rant and called out Drake, saying, "Drake, come and get me. This is Exodus," like Pusha said on God. This is the last subliminal track to come out as of now. Of course, we know Drake is working on his new album, Certified Lover Boy, and I don't know if there's going to be subliminal shots at Pusha T and Kanye, but on my guess, I think it's possible. I doubt anytime soon the battle between Pusha T and Drake will end. These two will continuously send subliminal shots at each other, and maybe again it will get to that point where they send direct shots at each other. That's it for the major points in this battle. Now let's talk about my opinion side of things, where I discuss the battle portion of this beef in the midst of the battle, who was winning, and then discuss the war portion after things have settled down, who is still doing great. In terms of the battle portion, I think everyone agrees, and it's clear as day that Pusha T won this. And even Drake himself said this in the Rap Radar interview.
I tip my hat to the chess move. I mean, it was a genius play in the game of chess. And definitely, warranted my first quote unquote, loss in the competitive sport of rapping.
Drake felt like he outbarred him, which is up for debates, but he did say that Pusha T just had the better chess move, the better track with better information in it. And of course, if Drake says this himself and admits it, which I got to give props to Drake for even admitting that he took an L in this battle, of course, then we know that Pusha T won the battle portion. Pusha T's just timing and execution was very well done, and the information he digged up was already public information, but people didn't really seem to pay attention to it, and he shed a lot of light on it. And he has those one-line hitters on the story of Adidon that kind of made everybody be like, whoa, damn. And usually those are the type of tracks that get the best responses. And he hit Drake in the soul. He questioned his character. He was questioning who he is as a man and what does he stand for. And those type of tracks usually tend to win. This is the same thing Nas did with Ether when it came to Jay-Z. He attacked Jay-Z's soul, his character. On top of that, Drake threatened Pusha T with this crazy diss track after the story of Adidon, but had Jay Prince come in and kind of save him and say, hey, I said for Drake not to release this track, and then Drake was like, I didn't want to release it because I didn't feel good about it. If you're going to mention responding to somebody, don't even mention it at all. Just say, hey, it's over. he won, I lost. Don't say, oh, I had this track tucked in and, I was going to release it and just destroy him. That just makes you look bad because you held back on this battle. And that alone, when somebody has to tuck back what they're doing and not release something because they feel like it's going too far, then it really wasn't like that the other person won and they're just bluffing. And Drake could be telling truth. He might have recorded a track. It might have been the greatest thing ever in terms of diss tracks, but just saying that and not releasing it doesn't matter at all. Just bringing that up doesn't matter at all. It doesn't give you points. You don't win by just mentioning what you have. You have to actually present it. So there's really nothing much more to discuss in the battle portion. Pusha T wins by a long shot. Now let's talk about the war portion, and this to me is the more interesting side of things because this is such a new beef and not enough time has passed by in order for us to gauge where these artists have went since this happened. I usually tend to look at history and hip-hop to sort of get a better feel of what to expect. And I found myself often comparing this to Jay-Z versus Nas. Because if you look at it, a lot of the same things happened. Nas, when he dropped Ether and destroyed Jay-Z, everyone was like, Jay-Z's career is over. He's not going to bounce back from this. Jay-Z had to retract some of the things he said on a diss track where he's talking about Nas's baby mama. So it's kind of the same thing with Drake having to retract that potential diss track that was coming out. And in the midst of this, of course, everyone looks at Pusha T's The Story of Adidon as an Ether diss, as something insane that Drake can't bounce back from. But if you look at the Nas versus Jay-Z battle, you can see where I'm going with this. I look at the Nas versus Jay-Z as Nas being Pusha T and Jay-Z being Drake. Jay-Z, after this battle, did perfectly fine and actually elevated and is looked at as one of the biggest legends in hip-hop. Not to say that Nas isn't looked at that, but Jay-Z just went to a whole different level after this battle. In the midst of them battling, everyone was like, Jay-Z got destroyed, it's over for Jay-Z, and the same thing is happening here. When Pusha T went at him, destroyed him, everyone was like, Drake is over. But if you look at the long term, based off of Nas versus Jay-Z, I'm going to gauge that Drake won the war portion because Drake is just too big of an artist to get destroyed by somebody like Pusha T. Like I mentioned in part 1 with Pusha versus Wayne, Wayne was just too big of an artist. Some artists are just too big to destroy. Their impact, their legacy is just way too big. And the same thing applied to Nas versus Jay-Z. Jay-Z at that time was just becoming too much of a legendary artist based on his catalog to have his career destroyed. So based on that beef, engaging this new beef where we haven't really seen the future, I'm assuming Drake won the war portion because he's still going to be doing great. I'm sure when Certified Lover Boy drops as an album, it's going to sell still well. And of course, the Laugh Now, Cry Later with Lil Durk track is still hot and buzzing, and it's a top 5 track on the Billboard Hot 100. So Drake's not going to have a problem with selling records and becoming the hot thing that he is. But amongst hip-hop heads, and this is like the people that are really into hip-hop like me, like I assume some of you listeners are, people are going to look at Drake a different way because he does have that L on his record now. And that's the same thing with Jay-Z. He had that L going against Nas on his record. But ultimately, it's a small thing, and only hip-hop heads will really acknowledge that. The general public won't really care, and will still look at Drake as this legendary artist. And that's nothing to take away from Pusha T. He's a great lyrical artist, like I mentioned in part 1. He is one of the best to me, but it's just that fan base, that huge pop star, level that most people can't reach, and nobody can, it's like the big pharmaceutical companies. They're too big to fail, even though they do something wrong or, government will bail them out, that type of thing. So you can look at Jay Prince, I guess, if you want, as the government bailing out Drake in this situation with that whole, retract the diss track. And then Drake is fine, man. He's going to sell millions and millions of records, and he's going to do perfectly fine after this. So that's my take on the battle portion and the war portion of this beef. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. That's it for part 2 of the Pusha T versus Cash Money Click battle. I'm thinking of adding a part 3 to this with Kanye West and Drake, since they kind of tie into this too. I don't know if I should or not. Let me know in the comments below. But that's it for this episode. Thank you for watching. That's it for today's video. If you guys want to support this channel further, you can do so at patreon.com/diverse mentality. For just $1 a month or more, you can help support this channel further. A link is in the description below. Like, comment, share, and definitely subscribe. I do videos like this daily on hip-hop news and much more, so definitely subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at QuakeGW. Like us on Facebook, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.